The basic orc fighting unit is a warband, an organization roughly equivalent to a company in human military terms. A warband is commanded by a large and aggressive orc chieftain called a warboss. The warband is split up into a number of mobs, with each mob usually led by an orc noble, referred to as a boss or a nob. Warbands are usually part of a tribe, but can be independent. The tribe is ruled over by a powerful warlord, usually the most dangerous and ambitious warboss who has fought his way to dominance over his kind. A tribe can comprise anything from several hundred to more than 1 million orcs, and will claim control of an entire continent or even a world. More commonly, a habitable orc world will sustain several orc tribes in a more or less perpetual state of war with each other until they join into a WAAAGH. Cutting across warbands and tribal boundaries are the orc clans. The clans embody a philosophy among the orcs. Each clan emphasizes particular elements of the orc culture above others. For example, there are the Goff, who embrace aggression, hardiness, and hand-to-hand combat as true orc virtues, while the Evil Sun's clan is dedicated to speed, lightning attacks, and having the snazziest vehicles. Some orcs become obsessed with clan ideals. Where this is the case, the orc will seek out like-minded individuals and join with them to create a warband which completely exemplifies the purest trait of their clan. However, most tribes are less dominant by the clan ideals, and clan values merely serve to instill a sense of unity and make a common enemy for tribes which were part of other clans. There are 7 clans that have spread from one side of the galaxy to the other. Those are the Goffs, the Snakebites, the Bad Moons, the Blood Axes, the Death Skulls, the Evil Suns, and the Freebooters. Each has distinct cultural preferences and abilities, perhaps engineered into the orcs by the Brain Boys. These are the orc clans. The Bad Moons are a powerful and very wealthy orc tribe or clan. They are the richest of all the orc clans because their teeth grow faster than anyone else's, meaning that even the lowliest Bad Moon orc has a steady supply of orc wealth. The orcish economy is based on teeth, which are literally orc teeth, harvested from the living and dead orcs. And orc teeth constantly grow, and those that are lost are quickly replaced, which means a nearly endless, if slow-producing, supply of currency. The Bad Moons essentially fulfill the role of a merchant caste in what passed for the orc society, and have a reputation of showing off. They are always continuously buying, selling, swapping, and conning to get teeth. Other orcs do not see the Bad Moon's natural gift as unfair, because any orc big and ferocious enough can simply smash the teeth out of a Bad Moon head. Many orc warbosses like to keep a mob of Bad Moons around for a steady supply of extra teeth. It is often not a terrible deal for the Bad Moons either, as any orc tough enough to beat their teeth out of them is usually one worth following into a fight. The highest ranking amongst this clan wears decorated war banners on their backs, and the richest openly flaunt their wealth by wearing necklaces of orc teeth. Instead of rushing into melee combat immediately, like many of their brethren, Bad Moons sometimes hang well back, firing their deadly snaz guns into the fray, while their mobs of Gretchen slaves wade into the enemy ranks to do the dirty work with tooth and claw. Some runt herders reckon that it might have been the Bad Moons that came up with the whole concept of orc teeth being used to buy things, when the clan figured out how quickly their teeth grow. Of course, there are other runt herders who said it is the other way around. When teeth became orc currency, the Bad Moons made their teeth grow quicker so they would have most of it. Bad Moons know the exact value of any item at a glance, and with a quick study of an individual, they can discern exactly how much that individual is willing to pay for something. Always eager to acquire new luxuries, haggling Bad Moons are a fixture in any orc gathering, where goods and services are being exchanged. As gold is considered particularly worthless by most orcs, being too soft to make a good weapon out of, orcs are more than happy to trade it away to Bad Moons for the more valuable teeth, which is why many Bad Moon vehicles are decorated with gold plating. Bad Moons love gold more than any other metal, and will commonly have a couple of glittering teeth in their Grin. If there is a downside to their wealth, it is the fact that while they have access to more teeth and better loot, more than the average orc, it is also incredibly easy to separate them from said wealth. Bad Moons carry a target on their back and are often smashed. Bad Moon mobs are always well equipped, at least by orc standards. Their knobs often sport flashy back banners and massive customized weapons, and are followed by an entourage of scuttering grots, servants, loaded down with ammunition and chests of teeth. The ornamentation is simply to show the orcs just what a big deal the Bad Moons are. This could include huge colorful totems above their wagons bearing grinning orc faces, or tethering statues of Gork or Mork. The wealthiest Bad Moons become flash gits. Though they are not unique to this clan, many Bad Moons aspire to such orky indulgence, and these orcs possess more teeth than sense, and are absolutely addicted to loud, flashy, high customized weapons. Strutting around with expensive snaz guns and custom shooters, flash gits tend to have a style over substance mindset that appeals to the greedy Bad Moons. A mob of Bad Moon knobs on foot will be covered in personalized combi weapons and gold-plated def guns, sauntering into battle with firepower enough to slaughter whole platoons of enemies. These heavily armored braggers think it is a blast to wipe out an enemy unit just as a rival orc clan is about to engage them in melee. The Bad Moons have a reputation for knowing things most orcs see no particular use for. This clan also tends to have a lot of weird boys who use their wealth to dress flamboyantly. Unfortunately for them, they often end up being dragged off to battle and used against the enemy like any other weapon. Bad Moons are more likely to engage their foes at range more than other orcs. Bad Moons will go so far to attain wealth that they will engage in highly secret deals with other alien races to gain access to technology and war gear unavailable to other orcs. They also love to spend their teeth on food, which means many Bad Moons are a bit stout around the belt. Bad Moons place a heavy emphasis on yellow, gold, and red as their clan colors, and they have more jewelry and piercings than any other orc clan. The Bad Moon clan symbol is a snarling yellow crescent moon over a black sunburst on a yellow banner. Their banners are often chased with black and white checks, embroidered with threads of gold and encrusted with glittering shiny bits. Nazdreg, a Bad Moon's warlord, noted for his wealth and flair, bullies his mechs into performing ever more progressive and bizarre experiments. Despite some nasty setbacks ranging from spontaneous combustion to sporadic gravity reversal, Nazdreg's mechs perfect their teleporter design. The warlord barters his new technology with Gotschool in exchange for an alliance. WAAAGH Ozdaka rampages through the Hellshriek system. Millions of orcs, led by the legendary Bad Moon bosses of bosses, Ozdaka. Entire worlds were smashed and enslaved during WAAAGH Ozdaka. The destruction was so great that the Adeptus Terra dispatched a Vindicator assassin to take out Ozdaka and his most powerful knobs. Brutally effective, the nameless assassin stalks the battlefields of Hellshriek, sniping orcs from the shadows, and taking a terrible toll on Ozdaka's bosses. In a fit of rage, the war boss offers 100 teeth for the head of the unseen killer. As word spread of the bounty, even more orcs flocked to Ozdaka's banner, and his wah swelled until it was larger than ever. Unfortunately, the war boss does not live long enough to enjoy the destruction he brought upon the Hellshriek sector, as the assassin's final shot takes Ozdaka's head from his shoulder. As the shot goes off, the Imperial agent is overwhelmed by a mob of Bad Moons, intent on claiming the immense prize. An infamous Big Mech of the Split Grin Bad Moons tribe, it was Mogrock who first convinced Gruck to look beyond conquering one planet and to launch his red WAAAGH into the stars. Big Mech Mogrock was a know-it-all git through and through. He was the kind of orc who would rather build a giant war engine covered in DACA guns than run towards the enemy. Though he was often accused of not being one of the boys, Mogrock is so good at creating big impressive war machines that not even Gruck himself was dumb enough to refuse him a place in the upper echelons of the tribe. Though none of the would-be orc warlords of the WAAAGH like to admit it, Mogrock had been the power behind the throne for quite some time. Always close at hand, Mogrock made sure Gruck was attacking the best worlds and keeping the tribe in line. Filled with all kinds of technological inspiration, Mogrock always seemed to have another trick in his bag, often pulling something out at the last minute to turn the tide in the favor of Gruck and his boys. During the Battle of Bonewash, Grock's Skullcrackers were ambushed by rebel Grots of the Red Toe tribe. It was Mogrock's shock tractor truck that sucked up the diminutive warriors and sprayed them across the desert like green and red confetti. Nazdreg was a large and cunning orc warlord of the Bad Moons clan. His personal space hulk crash-landed on the doomed world of Medusa 5, and he and his orc WAAAGH participated in the great battle known in Imperium records as the Fall of Medusa 5 campaign. Even though the Battle of Medusa 5 ultimately led to another defeat for the orcs, Nazdreg and many of his boys managed to get off the planet alive after learning that the Imperial forces had damaged his space hulk beyond any hope of repair. Nazdreg came up with a truly brilliant escape. Nazdreg is an exception amongst the brutish orcs and demonstrates a measure of both intelligence and patience. He speaks excellent Imperial Low Gothic and understands the carrot and stick approach of reward and punishments to boost the productivity of his hapless humans and Gretchen slaves. Let's get into some bonus facts about the Bad Moons. All Bad Moon orcs have a well-deserved reputation for being as proud of their loot as their prowess in battle, but the Split Grin tribe are among the worst of their kind and have amassed piles of teeth in recent years. For years, the Split Grin Bad Moons scrapped out an existence on Iraq, skirmishing with their rivals, the Goffs of the Skullcracker tribe. Their war boss, Skagfing, was content to lead his boys in a brawl with the Goffs and make some teeth in the process, trading with freebooters for shiny stuff. The Split Grin tribe might not have been huge, but they had the best loot and the biggest guns to keep the other orcs from getting their hands on it. Skagfing liked to make jokes about the poor Krog, the tyrant who couldn't afford a good shooter. This all changed when Gruck met Mogrock and decided to take control of all the planet's orcs. Skagfin had only recently heard about his rival's death when Gruck and his lads smashed their way into the Bad Moon camp, the Goff warlord sacrificing loads of boys as he charged in to pin Skangriff down, stand on his chest, and rip his face from his skull. The Split Grin tribe became inferior to the Skullcrackers, and Gruck was given access to Sanctum Reach subsector's freebooters. This meant Gruck could leave the planet, and the Bad Moons of the Split Grin tribe were promised fortune outside of the planet. More Bad Moons flocked to the new war banner, happy to be part of the Red WAAAGH. The Death Skulls are an orc tribe or clan that has a reputation as looters, scavengers, and borrowers. The orcs of the Death Skull clan have a well-deserved reputation as thieves, never ones to pay for their fair share or spend teeth when an item has been spirited away. The Death Skulls are nearly as mistrusted among fellow orcs as their cousins, the Blood Axes. The Death Skulls are plunderers without equal. Given their ingenuity, most Death Skulls would be capable scientists and excellent engineers if their fascination of new things lasted longer than the time it took them to steal them. The Death Skulls see battles as a two-stage process, often hurrying the killing part in an effort to speed along the scavenging spree that follows. After the battle, the boys really go to work, feverishly stripping the corpses of the fallen of everything from munition to bootlaces. Many Death Skulls will take grisly trophies, such as the victim's scalps or skulls, into the bargain. Only when the loot is returned to the camp does the inevitable fighting break out, as the Death Skulls trade, barter, and auction off their ill-gotten gains. Other orcs are drawn to the Death Skull camps in search of these stolen goods, looking for a specific bit of kit or even something taken from them in the first place. Usually, they leave with less than they came with, as the Death Skulls have an uncanny ability to knock another orc around the head while going through their pockets at the same time. Death Skulls do not limit their plundering to enemy corpses, and anything that can be taken probably will. Wrecked vehicles are especially popular for this, as the burnt-out hulls of the battle tanks, armored transports, or even flyers are all fair game. Dragged off the battlefield, they can either be broken down for bits or taken to a mech, who will beat some life back into them. It is not a rare occurrence to see orc armored columns composed not only of trucks and battle wagons, but of looted Leman Russ tanks, Rhino armored personal carriers, and other armored fighting vehicles, with numerous orcish improvements bolted and slathered in a barbarous paint scheme and iconography. In longer engagements, band blades, the remains of heavy Eldar gravity tanks, and even the occasional Titan has been seen wearing the horned skull of the Death Skulls. Only the Evil Sons enjoy using fighting vehicles more than the Death Skulls, who love modifying vehicles and stealing the great war machines whenever possible. Once they have stolen something, they personalize it to establish ownership once and for all. This often involves painting it blue, the color which they believe attracts the eye of their gods and protects them from harm. The superstitious Death Skulls even use blue war paint, sometimes going as far as painting themselves blue from head to toe, the night before a battle. They believe the color blue is lucky, and that it attracts the attention in favor of the orc god Gork and Mork, and thus brings them better fortune on the field of plunder. Given the Death Skull's broad definition of what constitutes personal property, it is little wonder that their clan produces a large number of ludas. The ludas from other clans are welcomed with open arms by the Death Skulls as brothers in arms. Most orcs see Death Skulls and ludas as one and the same, both a bunch of thieving gits one would do well to keep a constant eye on. Ludas are compulsive scavengers who also have a weakness for large guns. They seek out the biggest and best weapons they can carry, often getting mechs to cobble them together into bigger guns, so heavy that they have to balance them on their meaty shoulders. These death guns, as they are dubbed, are among the deadliest weapons an orc can wield, and in the battle they make a tremendous racket as they tear apart the enemy with bullets, blasts, and bolts. Despite their flighty, schemy nature, the Death Skulls do not turn out a large number of mech boys from their ranks, as their obsession with the object typically expires the moment it is within their possession. However, mechs hold a high status among the clan, as it is these canny orcs who dodge together copious amounts of scraps and gubbins into the deadly weapons, tanks, buggies, and other assorted war gear which the Death Skulls are in love with. While they can create anything imaginable from the junk brought to them by their brethren, Death Skull mechs are perhaps best known for their incredibly dangerous orc combi weapons they create from the piles of mismatched weapons they tend to have lying around their workshop. The Death Skulls are also known to have a lot of clever and enterprising Gretchen. As battlefield plunderers and petty camp pilfers, they often get themselves a bad name amongst other clans for selling dodgy gear that is not good enough for the Death Skulls to keep for themselves. Death Skulls are very superstitious and believe that various talismans and charms allow them to manipulate their fate upon the battlefield. Death Skulls often possess unexpected weapons, vehicles, and war machines that they have looted, and the sudden appearance of a particular potent piece of machinery can sometimes turn the tide of battle. Death Skull livery is dark blue and black with white highlights. Everything possessed by Death Skulls, from arms, armor, and vehicles to mundane workshop gear, is slathered in numerous shades of blue in an attempt to court fate. They even paint their proud green skins in a shade of blue to ward off attacks, accidents, wounds, and illness. Like every other strange idea brought about by the orc kind, or confounding piece of equipment carried about their person, painting an item orc blue does seem to have an effect. The Death Skulls are much luckier than other orcs. Their equipment operates much better than any other. Skulls and bones feature predominantly among their kind. For instance, helmets are often cast or fashioned in the form of a grinning skull. Death Skull orcs are commonly seen fested with bone amulets of every kind, pendants, talismans, and cherished bits of long-dead enemies. Some Death Skull warriors wear dozens of enemy ribs laced together to form a kind of breastplate. They often appear in bizarre styles of dress. This results in a ragtag appearance of various items of armor and colored clothing, made up of various race uniforms sewn together. The Death Skull clan banner is a bone-colored horn skull on a midnight blue flag with white accents. The pole upon which they hoist their colors is typically made up of laced-together skulls and bones of their enemies. The Death Skull clan sigil is added onto anything its boys have stolen or established ownership over. Sometimes the totem is depicted as a regular skull with horns, or an alternative blue-colored horn skull. One of the most talked about Death Skull WAAAGH came from the Big Mech Fragrat, the Planet Smasher. This Death Skull Big Mech vowed he would surpass all other Death Skulls by looting an entire world, jerry-rigging a combination of tractor beams and ram ships, and city-sized rocket boosters to push the third move of Tara Brax out of its orbit, directly onto a collision course with its parent world. The resulting catastrophe rendered all life on the thriving Imperial Hive world extinct, fracturing continents, boiling the oceans off into space, and burning away the world's atmosphere, finally reducing the planet to a drifting debris field. Satisfied with his work, Big Mech Planet Smasher takes his pick of his asteroids, adding thrusters, force fields, and ordnance arrays to turn them into a fleet of rocks, which he used to spread even more mayhem across the star system. Another notable Death Skull warlord is Bach Stickyfinger, a rich Death Skull knob who pilots the Gorkanaut known as Blackfist. He stole the war machine purely as a way to ensure he had his best pick of loot. Not a week goes past without Blackfist being equipped with even more firepower, looted from the remains of another blasted battlefield. So successful a thief Bach is, he is an outcast from the Carcharodon Empire, that he refers to himself as the Arch-Larcenist of Carcharodon. Most of his comrades don't get the gag, of course, but this never stops old Bach from having a chuckle. Stickyfinger takes his fighting very seriously. The old Death Skull might have swiped Blackfist as a means to an end, but he has since become quite attached to this armored steed. Indeed, he takes any damage to the mighty walker as a serious personal insult, focusing his anger on those who dare fire upon him. Needless to say, between the Gorkanaut's vast firepower and trampling mass, few foes live to make the same mistake twice. And the final legendary Death Skull, Grabber Gutbag, is a legendary looter who was so good at habitually liberating vehicles from the enemy. It was said that he could even loot an Imperial Titan, and later unleash it on its former commanders. It is seen as the highest of comedies for the Death Skulls to use looted vehicles and equipment against their former owners, causing utter chaos within their ranks. The Goffs are the orc tribe or clan who represents the largest and most aggressive of the known green-skinned clans. The Goffs are the biggest, meanest, and most brutish of all their kind. In the orc society, where might makes right, the mightiest are the great orcs of the Goff clan, the biggest of the green-skinned clans, both in height, bulk, and unmatched in their savagery. The Goffs are the archetypal orc. Their size, savagery, and ambition make them natural leaders among the orcs, and among their ranks, the Goffs count some of the most infamous and brutal orc warbosses in history. Goffs are also stiff and humorless in the extreme, which puts them at odds with many of their more easygoing green-skinned brethren. Goffs are longer of arm and broader across the shoulder than nearly any other orc. With their reach and their immense strength and endurance, they can outswing, outpunch, and outlast all but the toughest foes, making them powerful and incredibly capable of being brawlers and melee fighters. When not directly engaged with their enemy, they fall to fighting amongst themselves or antagonizing other orc clans. Goffs have an ingrained notion of how WAAAGH should be. They look down upon clans that employ sneaking around as a tactic. They rely mainly on infantry and prefer any up-close and personal fighting style rather than any other. Huge, savage mobs are the calling card of the Goff clan, and their armies tend to be larger and more homogeneous than any other clan. While they make decent battlefield strategists, their tactics lack any kind of subtlety, preferring to charge directly into the enemy guns. Their preferred weapons for this kind of action are the ubiquitous sluggas, often with some kind of bayonet or other melee attachment, and the heaviest, choppiest, wickedest choppa they can carry. Thanks to their bull-headed view of battlefield tactics and their love of close-quarter battle, the majority of Goff forces tend to be sluggaboys or arbboys, occasionally carried into battle on trucks and dismounted for their final charges, but mostly content to walk wherever the fight is. These powerful infantry fighters are supported by the usual group of weird boys, mech boys, runt herders, killikans, and the occasional death dread. The Goffs also boast the greatest number of knobs and storm boys amongst any of the greenskin clans. This is because the Goffs are some of the most militaristic of all the orcs. Goff knobs frequently don mega armor, as they see it the best way to get right into the middle of the fighting, to dispense some violence to their enemy. Goffs will indulge in dangerous rituals of strength amongst themselves. For these contests, they don ritual bullhead helmets with great bull horns attached to them. They then charge each other in a manner like a raging bull, colliding with a loud clank as the horned helmets make contact. They continue to headbutt each other until one has had enough, or until they've headbutted each other to death. Excessive deviation from the way of the clan is met with punishment, and the miscreants will certainly get clobbered on by the orc warboss who comes his way. War paint and tattoos are also considered taboo by the Goffs, but skull earrings, death-headed pendants, metal stud piercing the flesh, skull-shaped gormets, and large nose rings are favored. To the Goffs, these are the outward signs of a tough character in the inner orc. Goff colors are predominantly black with white highlights. The somber monochrome of this color is considered the only proper attire for a grim and serious orc warrior. They also tend to utilize a black and white checkered pattern on their armor, war gear, and vehicles, but this is as far as any self-respecting Goff warrior goes. The very idea of camouflage is an enigma to the Goffs, for they consider its use both cowardly and an affront to Gork and Mork. In addition, the use of bright colors, flashy bits of chrome, or polished metal as ornamentation for clothes, armor, and war gear is frowned upon, and the use of such things is more than likely to get you beat up by a Goff elder. The only kind of ornamentation allowed among the Goffs are big horns. Massive curved horns cut from the heads of dangerous beasts and worn on the helmets as a sign that the orc's utter fearlessness and brute resilience lives on. The slave herds of Snotteling and Gretchen are not permitted to wear black. This privilege is reserved for full Goffs alone. The Snot and Grots are allowed to paint their faces with black paint. The slaves must be content with drab, neutral colors. Any attempt to wear bright colors is met with a giant fist. While it is true that the Goffs despise lowly Gretchen, most have learned a grudging respect for those that manage to pilot a Killikan. In these hulking metal husks, the Gretchen are not scrawny weaklings, but death-dealing bruisers capable of the orc ideal. The Goff clan symbol is a black bull's head over a red circle on a black banner, often with a black and white checker pattern around the edges for contrast. They utilize the bull's head as their clan totem, and as Goffs feel a great kinship with the bad-tempered, violent, and flauntless beast. The most famous Goff warlord is Godskull Thraka. He is the single most influential orc in the galaxy, and billions of greenskins march to war in his name. Since Godskull's rise to power, he has led countless campaigns of destruction. He has crushed Eldar war hosts, banished tides of demons, smashed Necron dynasties, ripped apart Tyranid swarms, and brought entire Imperial sectors to their knees. To check out more facts about Godskull Thraka, please go to our channel and check out 40 facts about Godskull Thraka. Another brutal Goff warlord is Goff boss Nazdreg, who followed Grut Face Ripper and his Red WAAAGH during the rampage through the Sanctum Reach subsector. Nazdreg was charged with keeping in line the hordes of Goffs within the WAAAGH so that he could concentrate on just smashing stuff, because Goffs have a habit of getting carried away when there's a scrap to be offered. On the planet of Obsidian, Grok used his Goff hordes to break the back of the Adeptus Ministratum defenses. Nazdreg made sure that the boys focused on the Obsidian fortress, rounding up mobs distracted by the burning of the planet's peaceful countryside, and sending them back up the mountains towards the Humies fortress. It was also Nazdreg's cunning tactic to use the big statues surrounding the fortress to smash down its walls, toppling them over to the deafening cheers of the gathering orc hordes. Warboss Ozdaka is an imposing figure, a brutish Goff with a huge bionic claw and a serrated steel-like skull mask, spattered in the dried blood of his most recent defeated foe. It is interesting to note that he is one of the few orcs capable of enunciating the TH sound. When he fought for the great tyrant of Jaga, Ozdaka gained a brutal reputation as one of the tyrant's best fighters. However, Ozdaka's destiny was to change when his tribe landed on the world of Eclipos. The planet's only settlement was that of an Adeptus Mechanicus research outpost at its northern polar ice cap. Ozdaka and his boys struck the outpost like a hammer blown from the sky, their rust ships and rocks raining down as the occupants frantically assumed defensive positions. The handful of tech priests and gun servitors were no match for the Goffs. The orcs hacked and blasted them apart before searching the underground Mechanicus complex for more heads to cave in. It was Ozdaka that found the massive door, as high as the Gargant and twice as wide. When he heaved it open, the cave beyond gave a great mechanical groan, and thousands upon thousands of pairs of eyes blinked into flickering eerie life. The Goffs could not believe their luck, as row upon row of metal men began to march forward to destroy them. Needing no order to attack, the boys charged into the cavern, hacking and smashing them apart until Ozdaka personally broke their leader in half and ripped off his metal face to wear as a mask, taking the name Deathhead in honor of this new trophy. No one knows if it was through some influence by the alien trophy which lit the fire of ambition within Ozdaka, but he left Jaga, and after that began his own WAAAGH. Krog, the Tyrant, was a warboss of the Goff Skullcracker tribe. His Goffs had a fiery rivalry with the Bad Moon Split Grin tribe upon the world of Iraq. Krog was overthrown by Grok Face Ripper, and together with Mech Mogrock, the new Goff warlord took control of the Skullcrackers and the Split Grin tribes. The Blood Axes are an orc tribe or clan that prefers the structured or militaristic form of warfare. Blood Axes often trade instead of steal, parlay instead of bellow, sneak instead of charging headlong into the withering fire of their enemies, and even retreat instead of dying in a heap with nothing to show for their efforts. Other orcs view the Blood Axes as untrustworthy because of their way they choose to wage war. Their contact with humans has earned them the title of treacherous dogs. This clan once was very powerful and easily dominated orc society for a very long time. A lot of WAAAGH boys were wiped out in a nasty inner orc war known as the Big Party. Other orcs believed the WAAAGHs were having too many friendly dealings with other enemies. As a result, the clan was overthrown and the surviving WAAAGHs fled into hiding. Presently, the WAAAGHs continue to deal with mankind out of necessity, since the clan has become dependent on subsidies of teeth paid to them by the Imperium. The source of these payments come from Imperial prospectors sent out to find old battlefields and rip the teeth out of orc corpses. They have made the most contact with the Imperium, occasionally even fighting for the humans as mercenaries and making extensive use of Imperial war material. These orcs put a great emphasis on cunning and tactics rather than a typical brute force approach favored by the greenskins. In combat, they use battlefield tactics closer to those of professional armies as opposed to the more usual orc tide of unrestrained and thoughtless violence, using moderately organized squads instead of the tribal mobs. The war bosses who rise up from the WAAAGHs tend to have a greater grasp of the big picture strategy rather than those of other clans, and some of the most well-planned and well-executed WAAAGHs in the Imperium history have been led by WAAAGH leaders. WAAAGHs take all their insults in stride, either having a good laugh or walking away only to turn around and bash the head of any orc that's taunting them. While it's true that the orc WAAAGHs trade with other species, they most often turn around and kill the alien merchants with their own guns. The WAAAGHs of WAAAGH tell a story about the greatest commando attack ever, known as the Big Raid. It happened on the world of Vorsanar, when WAAAGH smashed into the edge of the Tau Empire. Freebooter raids on the Tau planet had been previously repulsed by a huge alien warship with more Daka than anything in the orc fleet. Called Korsta La by the Tau and the Big Daka ship by the orcs, it stalked the space lanes around Vorsanar, annihilating anything that trespassed on the Tau Empire. While Grok knocked the heads of his freebooter captains together trying to get a large enough fleet to storm the Tau planet, a mob of WAAAGHs came up with a more cunning plan. The Big Daka ship's only weakness was that it needed to use a huge orbital dock around Vorsanar to refuel and rearm. They would attack the orbital dock while the Korsala was away, wrecking the Tau station and denying the warship a place to repair itself or rearm. The WAAAGH Commandos set out in a looted Tau transport ship, using captured codes to approach the docking yard. Under the pretense of having been damaged in an orc raid and seeking safe harbor, the Tau were initially suspicious of the lone vessel limping into their void station, but every demand for identification was met with a satisfactory response, and the idea that the orcs would undertake such a risk was unthinkable to the Tau. It was a horrific surprise when the vacuum sealed open and the orc commandos poured out into the station. By the time the Tau had mustered to repel the invaders, the commandos had reached the void station's reactor, smashing them to scraps. They set off a chain reaction, dooming the station and allowing WAAAGH to ransack the planet and ultimately the entire sector. The Forge world of Kanto II is left badly weakened by the Tyranid splinter fleet. The WAAAGHs of Warboss Nazdreg sent a crack team of commandos and mech boys to steal the warlord titan Wrath of Caspia amidst the chaos of the planetary's recovery. The commandos shoot their way on board the titan, and their attendant's mech manage to jumpstart their fusion reactor. However, the orcs have no way of controlling the Titan's machine spirit. Disoriented and enraged, the Titan goes on a devastating rampage across the planet before overloading its own reactor. The Commandos mission is a failure, but the devastation caused to a vital Imperial Forge world is substantially affecting supplies to numerous Imperial war zones. A notable Blood Axe warboss is the Warboss Badfrag, who led many of Warlords' Gruck Face Rippers' armed and shooty wagons of his Red Wall, lots of them stolen from the Humies, but made even more killy. Badfrag knows his Mark 8 Mars pattern Chimera from his Mark 6, and takes any excuse to lecture his fellow Blood Axes on the subject. He loves nothing more than showing off his collection of looted wagons in battle by leveling a storm of crude but effective firepower at his foes. Often the first thing to hit the ground was Badfrag's looted wagons that would rumble forward, smashing anything in their path in the rising tide of rusted metal and flame-belched barrels. On Phenos 4, Badfrag led the charge across the ancient energy bridge connecting the Hive Primus to the world's jungle-choked mainland. Ramming through the Imperium's defenses, Badfrag sent scores of enemy tanks tumbling off the bridge and into the boiling seas hundreds of meters below. In the aftermath of the battle, Badfrag used mobs of grots tethered to cables to fish out the wrecks so he could press them into service again. He favored using grots for every job that he wouldn't do himself, which was to say nearly everything outside of combat. One of the most infamous Blood Axe Orc Commandos is Boss Snickrot, and his story can be heard by checking out the 40 facts about Snickrot. Another notable Blood Axe is Gorsnik Magash, known also as the Great Fiend Gorsnik. He was the Overfiend of Arcturus at the time of the Third War of Armageddon. He fought as a willing ally of the infamous Orc warlord Gottskul Mag-Uruk Thraka. Most young Blood Axes end up in the Storm Boys. Using potent rocket packs, they fly into the fray on pillars of smoke and fire. These odd orc formations are a place where a young orc can rebel against the anarchy of orc society by following orders, conducting precise military drills, and polishing their boots. Heckled and laughed at by most other orcs, these Storm Boys spend hours each day marching about and chanting, saluting each other, and generally carrying on in every un-orky way possible. As they age, most orcs leave the Storm Boys for proper mobs, but some gain a taste for it, especially Blood Axes, and will rise to command whole formations of black-booted young orcs. Orc Commandos are those rare boys who have been touched by Mork and emulate the Orcish god's tendency towards cunning first and open combat second. Blood Axes see little worth in going through all the effort of making a cunning plan only to be gunned down like a fool before it can be executed, and their approach to combat is more circumspect than others. In fact, along with great war bosses, many Orc Commandos come from the Blood Axe clan. Blood Axes use stealth to reach their enemies, denying them the chance to fire and gutting them before they know the battle has begun. Unlike most orcs, Blood Axes actively work to avoid being shot at while running screaming across the battlefield. As such, Blood Axes frequently ambush their foes, using dense terrain such as jungle, ruins, or other enclosed areas to close to a melee combat before the enemies can reach. Blood Axes prefer to fight their enemies in hand-to-hand combat, and prefer to get there alive. They also employ decoy units from time to time, drawing the enemy forces out to expose vulnerabilities that they can exploit. Blood Axes prefer muted colors for their clothing and war gear, with black and green being predominant, along with numerous patterns and colors of camouflage both self-made and looted from enemy forces. While they alone among the orc clans use camouflage, the Blood Axes do not understand why it works, only that it does. This means that a group of boys might have a dizzying array of different camouflage patterns among them, typically none of which are appropriate to the environment in which they are fighting. But this matters little, because no matter what kind of camouflage they wear, the camouflage keeps them hidden as long as they think it keeps them hidden. The Blood Axe's banner features crossed axes with bloody blades in a dark green circle on a black banner. Along with the axe insignia, their banner often features other iconography showing off their cunning and sneakiness. Freebooters are piratical orcs who exist on the fringe of the orc culture. They are bandits belonging to no specific tribe or clan, but who will work with a tribe as well as stand against any other if the price is right. Freebooters are orc warbands that are composed of a variety of orc mobs from several different warbands or orcs who have separated themselves from their former clan by choice or through exile. These roving bands are composed of renegades, bandits, pirates, and other outcasts. Some of these orcs are fugitives, eccentrics, and the remnants of shattered green-skinned tribes. So it is hardly surprising that many freebooters have very treacherous and unpleasant characteristics even by standards of an orc. Most freebooter mobs hire themselves out as mercenaries, or else they can be persuaded to join in battle with the promise of loot. Amongst the freebooters are a handful of unstable individuals who are particularly dangerous and aggressive even by orc standards. These orcs wander off and tend to form their own small roving bands of pirates. Naturally, they are eager for adventure, combat, and booty. Not that kind of booty, no. And are quite happy to tag along with other orc tribes and WAAAGHs as mercenaries. Freebooters wear styles of dress intended to emphasize their mercenary status, decorating themselves with flamboyant clothing and piercings such as ears and nose rings. Having long since abandoned any tribe or clan loyalty, they have adopted highly personalized insignia in place of their former clan symbol. Often they will employ what the Imperium has named the Jolly Orc, skull, and crossbone icon, a universal symbol for all freebooters. These mercenary orcs are known to use this symbol to adorn their banners, clothes, and vehicles. Freebooters are recognized by their ragtag appearance of their orc bionics, due to the lack of their access to pain boys or mech boys. Their injuries are often superficially treated, thus many freebooters sport peg legs, hooks, and eye patches. When not employed, freebooters live in destroyed spacecraft and hide out in isolated planets and large asteroids. The band is usually led by a hardened warboss who prefers the title of captain. These individuals are the biggest, strongest, and most cunning cutthroat orcs within the mercenary bands. They dress even more flamboyantly than their fellow orc freebooters, often sporting large tyracorn hats and thick gray coats that conceal numerous weapons. Orcs rarely organize above the level of a single ship. However, small fleets can be formed around a particular charismatic or successful orc captain. The mind of an orc freebooter, two things are most important: battle lust and greed. Freebooters want more of everything: more weapons to grow stronger, more salvage to build ships, more war machines, and more wealth for prestige amongst their kind. Orcs are usually encountered in small raiding ships, roughly the size of an imperial escort vessel. However, the size of an orc void ship is deceptive. The ship is crammed with green tides of orcs, which ensure that any boarding action is likely to go the way of the orcs. An attack by an orc freebooter tends to be brutal and direct, with the orc ship rushing headlong toward the enemy, firing every gun they have before ramming and boarding their victim. The directness of the orc freebooter attack does not mean that an orc freebooter captain lacks cunning. Orcs often lurk in asteroid fields on the edge of the system where they cannot be seen by the sensors of ships. Ambushes on convoys of supply ships from this kind of hidden position are common, and even small fleets of warships are not unheard of. Should an orc freebooter captain feel the need for a bigger prey, the crew may descend on an inhabited world or space station, loot and burn it, and withdraw to their ships at the protection of the debris field. If, however, the orcs of the freebooter fleet are really spoiled for a big fight, they are likely to brutalize a world or void station and just wait and see who or what turns up to try to stop them. Orc freebooters lurk throughout the Coronis expanse in the region of the Halo stars beyond the Calixis sector. From crude space stations built in asteroid fields or debris clouds, numerous orc freebooter captains lead their ships to loot whatever they can find and fight whoever crosses their path. Those orc flash gits who acquire too many teeth even for their fellow gits to stomach are often exiled from their clan and forced to join a freebooter band. Sometimes orc warbosses get pushed out of their tribes by a new warboss who does not succeed in slaying them. These giant orcs and their retinue of knobs often become the foundation of a new freebooter clan. Some freebooter bands are made up of mech boys from different tribes who have gathered together in pursuit of their common interest in a certain technology. This is true, for instance, of the orc biker who makes up the freebooter band of Ozdaka Guts Mech. Many of the orc pain boys who have performed the infamous but popular squig brain transplant get exiled from their tribe after only a few successful operations and find new lives among the freebooters, though whether this is actually an advantage or hindrance is a very much of an issue. Those orc runt herders who begin to feel for their Gretchen and can no longer stand to see their grots used as cannon fodder often leave their tribes behind and become freebooters, such as Nazdreg Warsnaga. Some orc speed freaks get exiled from their tribe for their particularly destructive feats of vehicular daring do's. They inevitably end up among the forces of the freebooters. Those weird boys who become addicted to their psychic powers often eventually become deadly dangerous to their tribe and are forced into exile. Some of these renegade psychers have even become demon hosts, which make them even more dangerous. However, there are many orc freebooters that are still willing to take in these orcs. Outlaws are feral orcs whose only contact with more advanced orc culture has been through the freebooter bands. They often join to see the verse. Some orcs develop mutations when exposed to the power of chaos or other environmental mutagens. Just like humans and any other intelligent race, these greenskins are shunned by their own people just as any other mutants are, though they are sometimes accepted by freebooters. Orcs are very rarely corrupted by chaos, but some of the more vicious and militant orc captains will seek to serve the cause of the dark gods in return for the power they grant him. These are called Chaos Renegade Orc Warbands. Some orc storm boys discover the doctrines of the blood god Khorne are right up their alley. Of course, they are usually ejected from their tribes for betraying the worship of Gork and Mork. Like other exiles, they often become freebooters, called Khorninite Storm Boys. Some Gretchen find the freebooter lifestyle even appealing and come to believe that they can be as effective at piracy as the bigger greenskins. Sometimes they are actually even right. Among the most dangerous freebooters are those groups of orcs who have been infected by the DNA of a tyrannid gene stealer and produce the immensely powerful orc gene stealer hybrid from their reproductive spores. These groups form orcoid gene stealer cults and often act as freebooter pirates, preying on Imperial commercial and passenger shipping to spread the infection. These freebooters are some of the most dangerous Xenos in the galaxy. And those were 40 facts on the Orc clans. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gersh1 with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom first in any